CrossPolitic. Happy Thanksgiving on the Fight Live Feast Network. Pastor Toby talked Knox.
We should have a big old turkey on the table.
Where's the turkey?
We should.
Where's the stuffing?
Even got a plastic one, a fake
Where's
one.
the mashed potatoes?
For real. Mac and cheese.
And the Alabama white sauce.
I blame the post-war consensus. It's the post-war consensus.
They changed everything.
And, of course, Dr. Story in the studio with us. He's been with us a number of times, and he actually did produce a podcast on our network for a while that was very helpful. So thank you for coming back in.
Absolutely. Great to have you. Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock, unlike my screen, which is definitely movable.
It's moving.
The college is just pointing over there. The premier institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world, guided by God's word, equipped with the genius of classical, liberal arts, and God-honoring wisdom, with a faculty, beautiful, a faculty dedicated to academic rigor. Thank you, Bree. And God's kingdom. New St. Andrews College offers an education that frees people from things like the post-war consensus. Logic and language, hard work and joyful courage, old books and godly professors. New St. Andrews College provides time-tested resources that can equip your student for any vocation. To find out more, visit nsa.edu. But wait.
There's more.
There's more. Using a smartphone or computer opens the door to a host of digital temptations, like the post-war consensus. In a world saturated with pornography and other harmful content, what's a Christian to do? We need to take a proactive approach, welcoming transparency in our digital media choices. And Accountable to You makes that easy. Their accountability software shares detailed activity reports from all your devices and your kids' devices in real time to the accountability partners that you choose. With accountability in place, your family can effectively guard against temptations online and live with purity and integrity. AccountableToYou.com/FLF. It's the word accountable, the number 2, the word you.com/FLF.
And that's the only trans we like. Transparency.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
What is going on with you two?
I don't know.
Dr. Rod Story is a highly trained, board-certified family physician. He has provided medical care for 18 years in many settings, including the ER, hospital, hospice, and nursing homes. His broad experience and skills can provide for most of your medical needs, including office procedures and advanced testing. In 2017, Dr. Story received the Physician Excellence Award from Pullman Regional
And then he
Hospital.
got fired.
And I was going to say, actually,
Same year.
Same year.
Wow.
It's weird. It's weird.
High achievements.
I got the best doctor award at my hospital, and then I come out against trans surgeries, and then they fire me.
I was going to say that should be included in your bio.
Absolutely.
He
Put that detail in there.
refused to participate in trans surgeries at the hospital and was given the boot, shown the door boot.
Showing the story.
I just pulled a game. Dr. Story, thanks for coming back on CrossPolitic.
Glad to be here.
You can. I might need to have that mic up
Move
closer.
that.
to
It's just
your,
move.
You bet. I'm a little shy of mics, but I'll try.
it's okay. Okay.
They like you, though.
All right.
Just think of it like
You're good. You just
I don't
stay
know,
there.
like
Just
a
stay nice.
I don't know, like a needle or a scalpel or I don't know.
Exactly.
So
Stethoscope.
We've got there. God, sounds a little more.
Yeah.
A little more nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
I got you.
Idaho has a near ban on abortion.
Correct.
We have it's a ban that allows for exceptions. I think it's for rape and incest.
Rape and incest.
Currently, and the life of the mother.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes. Emergency circumstance, basically.
Okay. So, obviously we believe that babies that are conceived through rape or incest should also be saved. That we don't actually believe that that's a legitimate moral exception. But otherwise, we have a pretty good, strong law on the books. Is that correct?
It's a very good law, and I think worth defending.
Yes.
And I had an opportunity to testify in its defense last week.
Yes, down in Boise.
So glad to do that. Yes.
And so why are you testifying in its defense?
Well, I would point out first off, while it's not a great law, it is a good law. It has had significant effects in our state. Our state has been doing abortions for the last number of years. We're not a big abortion state because it's not part of our fabric, not part of who we are as an Idahoan. But certainly there has been physicians who have been doing
1,400 a year.
Yes, 1,400 a year, and in since the law, it went to 5.
Wow.
So we're talking more than 1,000 children not aborted in our state.
Right.
At least in our state. Some of these
some of these people are going to
exiting the state.
going to other states.
And we know that women are walking across the border to Oregon and Washington State, where they have expanded. But in Idaho, this is not our way, and the law is good. We have a strong representative group here in Idaho that has worked hard for this law. built it over time. It's added law on top of a 6-week heart ban bill. So there's actually 2
laws in effect,
both of which are being challenged by this court case.
So, and explain the court case.
Sure. Court case came into place because the Supreme Court has already upheld this law 3 times.
Okay.
This is same law?
This same law has said Idaho is doing fine. This is perfectly on the books. It fits our...
It's been upheld 3 times.
3 times, yes.
Wow.
And now this is a civil litigation, basically trying to force this law to loosen its exemption from an emergency circumstance for the woman, basically dire straits. The doctor has done everything possible and is working to save the life of the woman and the child is lost. This provides an exemption for that. As you mentioned, the other 2 exemptions.
Is that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just so on that one, is it actually that, or is there a, can the physician kill the baby because he thinks that the mother is going to?
That is correct. So it is still, like I said, it's not a great law.
Okay.
But it is a law that has a significant effect. And generally, it is not a law that represents an actual problem.
Right. So that's what I just wanted to clarify.
Because physicians, when we care for women and their babies, we care for them in sync, in tandem, because their life depends on each other.
Right. And if a baby, I mean, there's a vast difference, and this is something that's just worth underlining over and over again. There's a vast difference between trying to save both lives, and being in a situation where you can't save the life of a baby.
Correct.
And it dies in the process of birth or after birth
or where you are delivering that child. And the law actually talks about that.
But that's different than actually killing the baby.
Yes. And in this case, it's still, it basically says if the physician in his
judgment,
best judgment, with what he understands to be the circumstances and all else fail, injures the child in the process, takes the life of the child, aborts the child, that he'll not be held liable for that. But any other circumstance.
Right. But there's a relatively high standard.
High standard.
Because it has to do with the life of the mother.
Correct.
And this lawsuit is trying to make it change.
Yes. And they would like to change that to the health of the mother.
Oh, this is what you're trying to explain,
Which
Gabe.
is a very wiggly term.
Before the show, Gabe was trying to explain this to me.
If you change it from the life of a woman to a health of a woman, any number of suggested ideas,
and I have mental health problems now.
Right.
Yes.
Or I've gained weight.
I've gained weight.
It's bad for
water
me.
weight.
and these are dire circumstances that we're talking about.
Yes.
What these women are arguing is something very different. So the 4 women that are bringing a case, along with the Idaho Family Physician Association, which I used to be part of, I cannot believe that Family Physician Association is actually trying to fight to abort children.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that for a sec.
Yeah.
That's a grievous thing.
So what's the name of this?
Idaho Association of Family Medicine. Actually, it's the Academy of Family Practice.
Have they lost a lot of doctors because of this? Do we know?
Well, I think what's fascinating is to recognize that we have physicians in Idaho that are very much out of sync with what our population believes about children and their role in our society and how they should be protected.
Yeah.
So we have physicians that are fighting hard to kill babies.
That's crazy.
Is there
family doctors?
Family doctors. Yes. I mean, think about this.
Not just like tranny doctors.
You go to medical school to heal people.
Right.
That's why you go.
No, and this is a great problem.
Help people
the
get
next
better.
generation of physicians that are coming up is out of sync with the population they serve. And the DEI movement has had its effect on medical training. Well, when you are, we have a local medical school here. They bring specialists in from Seattle, specialists that will spend 2 weeks of required training to say why you have to consider abortion as part of your care. So I'll tell you that when I was trained, and I'm 20 years in medicine, abortion was it was a weird thing that broken doctors did off in a corner.
Right.
Now it has become mainstream to education, mainstream to consideration, because we've bought this empathetic idea that we have to, even if we don't agree with it.
Well, sorry to think that these are nefarious motives, but is there an amount of money that's available in this that they want, or that's available that they don't currently have?
No, I think it's
just ideology.
It's bigger than that. I think it's ideology.
Really?
It's the idea that physicians have a role in who lives and who dies. And that crosses a dramatic line that as physicians for millennia, we have said we should not cross.
Right.
That we should never be in the role of taking human life.
You said empathy a minute ago.
Yes, sir.
And so doctors are not supposed to be empathetic.
Empathetic means jumping into the deep end with a drowning person.
Right.
And drowning with them.
Right. So rather than being sympathetic, where you're on the shore, and you're saying, here, let me toss you
you're in a tough pickle.
A rope. Let me help you.
Yeah.
But this demand for empathy, or what Joe Rigney has called untethered
yes, sir.
Empathy, you're saying that's driving even this.
It is driving it because what we've lost is this sense that the physician has a moral responsibility for what we do. Wow. That at the end of the day, at the end of our life, we'll stand before a righteous judge and answer for the work we do.
Wow.
That we've basically turned into technologists that offer our services to however you would want to use it for whatever you'd like to pay.
Wow.
And that's a dramatic change. And I don't say that lightly, but that has been a dramatic change. We've lost our moral underpinnings for why we do medicine.
I know you want to talk about this.
Case.
I knew we talking about this case.
Yeah, this one.
Can I ask you about the education a little bit more?
Sure. Before we get there, because I got a question that'll lead us into the case.
We're talking about this new generation coming up, being trained in this, DEI, untethered empathy.
Well, you remember in COVID, the videos that came out about medical patients,
the dancing doctors.
Not just that, but the oath they would take.
I never danced.
The class.
Yeah. Thank you.
The oath they would take. And remember, we had one example a long time ago, 4 years ago, where this class was reading off this kind of, doctor's oath that they were learning that had all sorts of DEI language.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. But I'm wondering, I guess my question is, so what do you tell young people that are interested in becoming doctors now?
Well, we've had the joy of mentoring some men through that process, but man, they have to go in eyes wide open.
Right.
And finding faithful programs, I think
are
you
there
basically
still
have
faithful,
to be in the
Are there faithful programs?
I'm thankful for Liberty University.
Okay.
Fantastic medical school. Just had a fourth-year student come out of there.
They're Christians?
Yes.
Okay.
But now he's in the University of Wisconsin program and getting hammered. I mean, the challenge is the powers that be that set the curriculum have been owned for the last 20 years by forces that would push a whole different agenda into medicine.
You want to pass the program.
Yeah,
yes, right. That's part of the problem.
And you are in a position where you are under authority. You do not have great opportunity to speak back. I did. When I was in residency, I went through Catholic programs for the purpose because I knew at the end of the day they would not ask me to abort children. Right. They would not push me to prescribe certain medications. And it was a great thing. Most of those Catholic schools, Catholic colleges, Catholic medical systems have been bought.
They've been sold.
No longer standalone since the Affordable Care Act made that very difficult.
You think that Christians built our healthcare system?
Yes.
There's the Methodist Hospital, the Presbyterian Hospital, the Mercy, Sacred Heart, all this stuff.
Yes,
and then we sold the industry, we sold the infrastructure away.
Right.
And then now it's just owned by, big insurance, big health.
Well, we also demanded it though. We said, take our money and provide for us, state.
And provide for our healthcare.
Well, we sold it when we expanded the role of federal government in insurance.
Yeah. Right. I wonder if, this is, Trump just got elected. He's talking about, he's made noises like, he wants to strip DEI from universities, and I hope that includes
and the military.
I hope that includes medical schools.
Well, and I would like to see in Idaho us take back our med school. So
100%.
our med school, we have a fantastic med school here in Idaho.
Where's that?
Right here in Moscow.
There's a med school.
You guys started a med school?
No, I wish I did, but it's called the WWAMI program. It's run by the University of Washington, so it's run by Seattle.
Okay.
And Washington, Idaho, Alaska, Montana take money. They send it to Seattle. Seattle then trains the doctors and sends them back to us.
Okay.
For the first year and a half, they are here in our state.
Okay.
And then many of them go to Washington or go to bigger places, but we pay that money through the state of Idaho. And sadly, we're paying Seattle to set the agenda.
To finish.
Brainwash our doctors.
Yes, and they are. The agenda that they require, the DEI training that is mandatory, and the physician students that now are physicians that went through, they share with me these horrific stories of being required to sit through 2 weeks 2 weeks they should have been giving to learning real stuff.
Well, and it doesn't seem like it's going to stop there, because if insurance is really the issue and they've got DEI in everything they do, then how they decide to treat people is going to be based off of what they don't get sued for.
Right.
Things are changing. I mean, I think there's enough backlash.
There's a backlash coming.
People have been keeping their head down and thinking, well, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
And there's a little wake-up call to say, I don't think we have to talk about this anymore. We don't have to watch those stupid beer commercials. Or,
Trump seems to be like
we don't have to,
the tip of the spear for this.
We don't have to watch our NFL team wearing rainbows.
If they're doing Trump dances on the football field, maybe
there's a sense of like the ridiculousness is kind of backed off.
We need a Ron DeSantis, though, our education system in Idaho. Because that's what he's done in Florida.
There's a hiatus in this. But there needs to be an end zone run that says, okay, let's drive this dagger.
Yes.
So
and Governor Little doesn't
and
have
finances is a big role. So I mean, I'd love to see Idaho say, we send all this money to Seattle. Why are we not?
Right.
And we've got the students here, we got the teachers here, we got the institutions here. Why are we not just keeping our money here?
We should train Idaho doctors in Idaho values.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
Right. I mean, that's what you're saying. Like, why would we send Idaho doctors to be trained in Washington values?
I got to tell you, having sat on several different councils, giving testimony for like the transgender bill, the ban that Idaho enacted last year that stands in court. It's the students that are raising the flag, and they're going after these laws,
right?
Because they're following what their teachers are telling them.
And we're funding those schools,
yes, sir,
to then train up the students to sue us for the laws that we passed.
We have a generation that is already pushing it that way,
right,
and is out of sync with what really is the Idaho way.
So we need to get we need to get some laws going in Boise related to reforming higher education and particularly in the middle school. So you were in Boise, though, to testify for this court case.
So
for the civil lawsuit.
Yes. So the state is doing a great job defending this law. The Attorney General's office,
Raul Labrador.
Good man, great group of guys and strong staff. Many of them believers who are working hard. Man, they have been hamstrung at every turn by the lawyer that's involved in the case and the forces that be. So they've not been allowed to defend this as they saw fit. They've been told, nope, not going to admit that in court, not going to allow that line of argument. What they contacted me in part because they were hoping to find some physicians in Idaho who would be willing to say two things: that this law is plain and easily understood, that it's clear and not confusing, because that's one of the lies that's being spread. That, this is confusing, and because as doctors dither about this, women are dying, which is not true. Not a single woman has died in Idaho.
Right.
Not a single physician has actually been tried under this law either. So it's not like Idaho physicians are being headhunted left and right. There's so many lies that are being told, but they're catching the attention of the people of Idaho, and I think we've got to get ahead of this. We've got to be talking about what's really at case. So the defense is bringing rebuttal witnesses, and I was one of three physicians, only two of us from Idaho, who were asked to stand up and talk about this. They didn't even allow that testimony that I was brought down there, that this was clear. Nor was I allowed to talk about my experience caring for pregnant women in many different directions over the last 20 years.
Right.
Because I've cared for women in actually kind of a unique experience.
Why were you not allowed to talk about these things?
Yes.
Because I'm not an obstetrician.
Oh, okay. So you're not considered like the highest specialist in that area.
Correct.
Okay.
But what's funny is neither are the family physicians that are fighting against the law. They deliver babies, but they would not be considered obstetricians. So
have they been allowed to testify?
Oh, sure.
You're kidding me.
No, sir.
So they're allowed to testify as defending the prosecution.
Correct.
They're allowed to testify for saying that the law is unclear.
Plus, let's take the line of argument here. So these four women that have had abortions.
They went out of state.
They went out of state to have their abortions. They were not medical emergencies.
Right.
They were not under threat. Each of these women, and it's published in the Idaho Statesman, and you can read about them. Seattle Times had an article about them. They went out of state and had abortions for children that they didn't want to carry because they thought they had genetic problems.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Stop.
No, sir. They did not want to carry these children. The doctors told them, these are fatal conditions. These kids are going to die anyways.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
And they had,
then
they had complications where they went. And they're blaming Idaho for the complications of the abortions
this is like
they
what
had
happened in
elsewhere.
Georgia. Yeah.
Wow.
Wait a second.
This is all being used to infer that our law is dangerous.
It's causing them harm.
Yes.
Even though the harm was from the complications of the abortions.
Of the abortion.
In another state.
In another state.
Oh, my gracious. So were you allowed to testify at all?
I was.
Okay.
And basically what I was able to do was to point out, and they asked me a series of questions because I think they were trying to essentially point out that I have some beliefs that medical care should never injure the life of a child, born or unborn, but we should not be in the business of ending human life.
Ah, well, thank you.
And then they're like, well, how about hormonal birth control? Yes. And let me explain to you why. Of course, that always makes someone look a little off in left wing. But
what do you mean by hormonal birth control? Why'd you bring that up?
I didn't bring that up. The defense, the prosecuting attorney
asked you about it, like trying to catch you.
Why did they ask you about that?
Well, because first off, I have talked about this issue, and if you want to learn more about it, I have my own YouTube site for my clinic, Story Family Medicine. Because I think it's important as Christians that we talk about these things, these medical therapies that impact unborn life.
Okay.
One of them is hormonal birth control.
Okay.
It's not a hidden fact that hormonal birth control blocks implantation of newly formed humans.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not the main reason, not the main purpose of these hormones. In fact, they're probably pretty good at doing what they primarily set out to do, which is to reduce ovulation, although I would say that there's problems with that. But we know, and it's published fact, you can go look on drugs.com and look up these meds, that they do have an effect at making the uterus an uninhabitable place for a newly formed child.
Yeah.
Whether you call that a fetus or an embryo or a baby, they're all the same because there's no differentiation in human development.
It's a small human being.
But it's important to talk about that. It's also important to talk about that we destroy unborn children for medical therapies, and we build stem cells, and then we create medications off those. And that's not a hidden fact. And we talked about that a bit during the COVID. Yes, so many of the COVID vaccines were built on
developed from aborted,
tested on, aborted tissues, developed on. So one of the things I hope the NIH has a coming to Jesus moment, a reckoning.
Maybe our boy Bhattacharya will.
Oh man!
So the lawyers were trying to poke at you and find inconsistencies. That's why they brought up the hormonal birth control. It's like you're against all these abortions.
But you had a consistent answer. You said no. We should.
Well, I mean, the reality is, human life should not be destroyed by doctors.
Right. Yeah.
So no matter its form, no matter what age, whether 101 or 1 day old. Is a wrong. It's a line that should never be crossed as a physician.
So when you responded, what did their lawyers say?
Well, it was kind of fascinating because the judge essentially said, this testimony, I'm letting it in under very limited circumstances, and the defense lawyer was very frustrated with that. But we went ahead and did whatever limited testimony we could, and at the end of it, there was enough objections back and forth, and it kind of fell flat. What I'm been encouraged to do is to go ahead and write an op-ed, and I'm hoping to do that in the next week, and just kind of talk what would my testimony have been if I'd been actually allowed to give it. So was any of the other doctors, was it the same sort of setup? They didn't get a chance to really speak either, or? It was two other docs. One, an obstetrician who lives down in the Treasure Valley. Excellent man. He and his wife have their own independent, and they can speak freely. That's one of the challenges in medicine is everybody is employed by the local hospital. They're not free. Yep. I have my own independent clinic, and that's been a great value, much more than I ever thought it would be. Wow. Just to be able to speak without that hanging over my head. Yep. Speak honestly and faithfully as God gives opportunity. So what was his testimony? His testimony was very plain and simple. This law does not affect him. He can continue to care for pregnant women, and he does, and he delivers lots of babies without any hesitation that the law is going to put him in, or the women that he cares for, in a place of duress. Was it brought up the fact that they actually had their complications in Washington or wherever they went to go get their abortion? Was that? I haven't had a chance to listen to all 5 days of testimony. I was there on the 5th day, and I was actually brought in last minute. And encouraged not to read the testimony. So I'm hoping to dig into that.
Okay.
But,
so you don't know yet?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
So what's the, so this is in it's a
civil suit.
Civil suit. It's not a criminal suit. The criminal suit, wouldn't that like be against the Supreme Court ruling, but the civil suit somehow outside of that Supreme Court ruling?
It is part of our system is an opportunity for citizens of Idaho to bring a civil concern against a law that they consider to be unjust, or to be keeping them from living life as they see. Mm-hmm. And so this is an opportunity for citizens to say, hey, I want my case heard.
So is there argument then, if we would have had the chance to kill our baby here and not go over, we would have had more success and wouldn't have been damaged in the process? Is that basically their argument?
Yes, sir.
We're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it.
Now, does the judge have to rule in a consistent framework with what the Supreme Court has already ruled on, or is there a jury?
I think that these are independent questions, and the questions continue to kind of work their way back up the ladder. And so, likely this, whether the judge rules and he in favor of the witness, of the defendants or the litigants, I think. Remains to be seen.
Is it appealable? Like it can be appealed? So whoever,
I believe it can be appealed.
Eventually to like the Supreme Court again?
Again, yes.
So then this is, if it's civil, they're suing for damages, right?
Well, or maybe they're just
a change of law.
Or change of the law.
$1.
You can sue also for just a change of law that would.
I think what they're mostly suing for is a change of heart. They want to change the narrative. They want, and this is the problem coming ahead. We have, we fought off one citizen initiative, and I'll use that in scare quotes, this year, which was the Proposition 1, the goal to basically blow open our primary into what they called an open primary.
Right.
Even that was a term that was used, designed and purposed to obfuscate the reality that they were going to destroy politics as we know and introduce confusion.
Right.
That is what is undergoing right now. And there is a group in Idaho called the Reclaim Idaho that is working hard. They're going to bring the next bill, which would be a constitutional amendment, very similar to what we've seen in Montana that just got passed, basically fooling the citizens of Idaho to sign on for the purpose of saying, well, we don't want to tell doctors what to do. We don't want to tell women that they can't. So that whole discussion has to happen long in advance. So we have some work to do before 2026.
What's the bill? Do you know what the bill is that they're bringing, this constitutional amendment that they're
it'll be very similar to the Montana bill, which is basically to expand abortion to be unlimited.
Oh, so to just basically legalize abortion.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And Montana passed it.
Undo what we've done. But if it's a constitutional amendment, does it have to go through our legislature?
I think there's a couple different ways it works in Idaho. And I think the legislature has to take it in a strong advisement. And I don't know the politics very well on that, but we've already through that same process forced Idaho to spend money on education that they did not want to spend. We've forced Idaho to expand Medicaid dramatically, and now we've increased the amount of money that we're spending for people who are not impoverished, and we've put people on the rolls that shouldn't be there.
Okay. All right. And so it's the same process. And you're saying they've had success running this play on some of these other socialist agenda items.
Yes.
And so
things that pull at the heartstrings of Idahoans. And we go, well, why wouldn't we want to spend a little more money on education?
It's for the children.
It's for the children.
And we also want to kill them.
And Reclaim Idaho gets millions and millions of dollars from out of state. This is where like Heather Scott had said, Idaho can be a cheap date.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
And so Reclaim Idaho's made significant headway. There, all the references that Dr. Story made came from Reclaim Idaho. Basically, the expansion of Medicaid, Medicare, the other issues that you mentioned, that was Reclaim Idaho.
Well, and it started as this guy driving his RV that he painted green, and he made it look very, very colloquial, very like, oh, this is a citizen initiative. It was never a citizen initiative. It was a plant.
And he's getting tons and tons of money from out of state.
Yes. Wow. As the Proposition 1 showed very well. I mean, they poured 10 times as much money as we did.
So that would be maybe one of the significant losses of Reclaim Idaho? would be
it is
the primaries.
So here's our opportunity. I mean, we've stand on having won very well.
Yeah.
So why are we not going forward from here?
Right. Yeah. No, it's a pretty it's pretty remarkable. I mean, it was not. I don't remember the exact numbers. Do you know what the numbers were on Proposition 1?
No, I didn't see the numbers. I just saw that we won.
Thank you.
But I know that it was
70% or something pretty dramatic.
We won pretty well, and it was a relief because it sure looked like they had a lot. I mean, they had a lot of money, they had a lot of ad time, a lot of billboards and signs and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, and I would argue they did well by saying this is not the Idaho way. We don't like outside money telling us what to do.
Right.
We also we have a really good primary process.
Yeah.
We don't want to destroy this by sowing confusion. And I think we have the same opportunity when it comes to abortion, but we need to change the narrative. We need to get out there and say the Idaho way of life is that we value all of our citizens from born to unborn to the end of life.
Right.
That it is the way of Idaho life to sustain life.
Right.
That we don't want our doctors killing children, unborn children.
Right.
That's not what a family physician should be.
Right.
There's many ways to I think, be the voice that says we want to be different and we want to stand apart from some of these states that are rushing the other direction.
Yeah.
Dr. Story, you've cared for, you said this in passing earlier, the fact that you've cared for women in multiple different situations. Yes. Some, I'm guessing, who have wanted abortions.
I have. I've cared for a lot of women who've had abortions. And man, the deep regret and the hurt. Several of them have told me they were told by a doctor that it was because that child had malformation or had a genetic issue. Yep. And man, the deep regret. They were told it would be easier to never see that child than to hold that child. It would be easier to abort it than to deliver it. And those are lies. The process that women go through in abortion is painful with an emptiness at the end.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the reality is that was another thing in this court case. It was actually the one thing I got to testify that I was so thankful. They said, a number of these genetic conditions are universally fatal and these children just won't make it anyways. I have several of these children who are living in my practice.
Yes.
I have one of these women. She has Turner syndrome, who is just about to adopt a child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And they would say that child should never have made it.
Turner syndrome.
Turner syndrome.
Yeah.
Because universally fatal.
Yeah.
They actually gave that as one of their leading purposes for expanding this from just the emergency case of the mother to the health of the mother.
That was one of the examples in the courtroom.
It was one of the examples.
What was one of the examples?
Turner syndrome.
The Turner syndrome. Were you able to testify against that?
I was.
Wow.
So
I was thankful because
you're able to talk about this, one of your own patients who has Turner syndrome.
Yes.
And that would have put that person's life.
And trisomy 21, trisomy 18. We have a number of children who have unique genetic challenges, but they're healthy and we work for them.
You wouldn't know walking down the street. And even
you might,
or the ones
but
that
they're
might,
loved and they love life and they're children of the Lord.
Right. Right. That's the other thing is, I mean, even these, the children
the
that
more
are
difficult
very difficult situations. I don't know of families that regret
No, sir.
No.
caring for the lives of these children.
No. And also, I mean, I was not able to share this, but I would share. We care for a lot of families that do lose their children.
Right.
The opportunity to hold that child and to love them even if they've been lost at 20 weeks and to see their formed bodies.
Right.
And they may not have full answers, but that opportunity to grieve and to say goodbye is so much better. As a palliative physician, I know that is the key to that family being able to be at rest from what they've seen, rather than a child taken away from them and they never knew.
Yeah.
Taken apart in pieces.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's right.
Do you think...
Let's be frank about it.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right.
Right.
Do you think that, as we were talking, I'm like, it sounds like the idea of humanity, like eugenics kind of won in one sense, because even somebody says, well, are they healthy? It's like, doesn't mean you get to kill them. Right? Like that's not the defining line of what's human. Like if you're unhealthy and you can still live, we want to try and nurse you back to health. if we have time to, like, if God gives us time and we get a cure for cancer, like, you got cancer, kill him. Yeah. No, like, we want to find a cure. We want to nurse you into life and nurse you back into health. It seems like that the value of a human life is like, well, if they're not healthy, then don't give them a chance to live at all.
Well, and we're going to see this on not just the abortion front, but on physician-assisted suicide in the next few years as well. Yeah. Because it's the same conversation. It's the conversation of what do we value? Do we value humans at every form and every point and every time? And do we value it as the Lord values it? Because the reality is that we have swum in this media cesspool that makes us think, oh, value is if you're young and healthy and perfect, and not dependent. And we swallow all these things like they're some sort of mantra, not realizing that as humans we depend on each other, and that's what it is to be human. That all of us have this moment where we're fully dependent on each other, and then we take care of each other. Mm-hmm. That is fully human. Oh yeah, and that's the best of it.
The ecosystem has been broken in some way.
Yes.
Were you going to say something? Because what would you have said if you actually had a chance to really testify? What would be your whole spiel to them?
Reviewing the medical literature. First off, I would say in 20 years of caring for women in an emergency room, I've been a hospital physician helping manage the complex pregnancies alongside obstetricians. I've been a family physician caring for families when they first find out about children, walking them through that process. I used to deliver babies, delivered one of my own at home.
I've delivered a few.
Oh, awesome.
He calls
that doesn't make you an obstetrician.
I am for my wife.
What's up now?
I think that's a stud move right there. Is that conversation about why have I never even considered abortion was necessary for any of those moments? And I've been through a lot of hard moments with families and women and seen them and cared for them. Abortion just, if you look at the way that women are cared for, even under the guidelines that the obstetricians and the family physicians publish, abortion is not mentioned. It's mentioned as we should probably keep this around just for, but the whole goal is support the mom, support the child as long as you can. When that becomes untenable, you deliver that child and you provide care to both. If you lose the child, it's a grievous circumstance, but you've tried hard and you've done your very best. And man, if that hasn't even changed, and Pastor, you and I have talked a bit about that recently, about how much that's changed even in the last 20 years, children that wouldn't have survived. And now here they are growing into adulthood. In my childhood, those kids were like, oh, sorry. But I mean, now those kids are thriving fathers and mothers.
Right. Yeah. When my daughter was born at 31 weeks, 2 pounds, 2 ounces. And we saw her, how small she was. And we just thought, we both just thought, we didn't say it out loud, but I think we both thought she's going to die. Like, this is just too small. It's like this tiny little baby. And so we were just braced for, well, we'll just enjoy, whatever time we have. And so she got transferred to this other, higher level NICU. We were in South Carolina at the time. Yeah. And we're just kind of hovered over the little box where she is and everything. And then one of those nurses came over and said, y'all can go home now, in her thick Southern accent. I can't do you can do a Southern accent. And we're like looking at her and she's like, there's 1 pounders down the hall and they're going to make it.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And this is in 2008.
So that's ancient times.
So this is almost 20 years ago. But she says there's 1 pounders down the hall. And I think there was a couple down there that were like, 15 ounce, like not even a full pound. And she said, they're going to make it.
And isn't that marvelous? I mean,
your daughter's going to make it. She says, go home and get rest. And it was some of them like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I was on LinkedIn today and the American Academy of Pediatrics had a thing talking about how wonderful it is that they're saving 21 weekers. Yeah. And I mean,
and killing 21 weekers.
And killing 21 weekers just down the hall. Like what in the world are we doing?
We were sitting in that NICU in Greenville, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And it's literally like catty corner from the hospital is the abortion mill.
Yeah. Wow.
Like you can like look, almost like look out the window. Look out the window. Yeah. And it's just insane. We're in this third floor where they're pumping,
saving babies,
millions and millions of dollars to save life, and money well spent, and then just flushing it down the toilet.
So I mentioned that it's not even in the algorithm, which is the medical word we use for long series of decisions for caring for women. I would go even one step further. Abortion is not healthcare.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
Because healthcare is in the business of preserving life.
Yes.
And purposely injuring life is not medical care.
Right. Which
And
is
that'd be the same category for trans surgeries.
Right.
It's not healthcare.
That's
it's
just,
injury.
whenever you're destroying something that is good and whole, like that's not medicine.
yeah.
Well, I think so you said earlier that, okay, we have this abortion issue here, but we're also going to deal with on the back end with assisted suicide. Those are two ends of life right there.
Yes, sir.
But we don't know how much thinking this way is actually going to affect everything in medicine throughout, not just abortion or assisted suicide. What are the effects that come when you have this kind of culture?
Physicians need boundaries. And that, I think, is one of the roles of our legislature, is to say, this is what we think this profession needs to stay. This is the guidelines that we would say, this is good medicine, this is not. And you mentioned 4 or 5 issues here. I mean, whether trans surgery and destroying bodies, whether using medications or therapies that are destroying humans, but some people want them, whether allowing physicians. I was just watching something that was saying you can pay $15,000 to have your eye color changed by a doctor. Is that a doctor?
Right.
Or is that a medical technologist misusing his skills?
Right.
That's interesting. So transhumanism becomes just a central point inside of this whole.
Yes,
I've seen
sir.
people getting knee surgeries now because they want to be taller, right?
Technology to the highest seller, right? Highest price.
Yeah. Right.
Physicians are human. We have our baser instincts. We have pride that destroys us. We have eagerness to handle these tools that can be used for life and death. We need boundaries. We need to be told this is good medicine and this is not. And that's a great role for the legislature, and I would argue for that.
It's also tied into the whole, I mean, back to the DEI stuff. I mean, if you think the world is this place of oppressors and oppressed, and the powerful and the powerless, then why wouldn't you use your medical technology to give a voice, to give power, to give ability? Why wouldn't you make somebody taller? Why wouldn't you fix their eye color? Why wouldn't you change their sex if that's what would allow them to feel like they were powerful and thriving? I mean, of course, it's not real, but I mean, you think about it. I mean, if DEI is your framework, and we're going to march in the streets and we're going to protest and we're going to scream and yell and burn down buildings, why wouldn't we do surgeries? Why wouldn't we do this if we thought that was justice? I mean, isn't it? Yeah. I mean,
well, I'm thankful that there's longer, deeper roots.
Yeah.
And there are truer, deeper laws.
Yeah.
The deeper roots in medicine is the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah.
Hippocrates, this Greek guy, came up with this brilliant idea about 2,000 years ago. And it was that you can't practice medicine without having a strong oath that says what we don't do in medicine. Right. So he was actually defining himself by what he didn't do.
Right. Negative law.
I don't give people abortions. I don't end people's lives, because that was actually really common in Greek culture. Whoever, you never know whether you went to the doctor, whether someone else maybe paid you a little more and you could slip them something. Yeah. But to have a profession, something you're called to, an oath that you say, this is higher than my own personal ethic. And I answer at the end of the day. He knew that there was certain things that you had to draw on the line. But we also have that deeper law, which is do not murder.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm going to practice that way because I know that I'm going to give an account. And man, what a great place to be to know, okay, this is what we're about. We're about preserving life and trusting that God is the author of it and the one that is going to ultimately direct it.
There's two things that I think where Christians are not as engaged as they should, that very much affects what's going on with us here in Idaho. One is in 2020, I realized when my case happened, I got arrested. I was looking for a lawyer that would defend me constitutionally in Idaho. I couldn't find one, a Christian constitutional lawyer that I could trust. So I ended up with a good Christian brother down outside of Boise, and he was just a criminal defense lawyer. Yeah, it wasn't constitutional. Thomas More Society was my constitutional lawyer that I found nationally.
Yeah.
But then we started like mapping things out, and realized how liberal all our judges were here in Idaho. Our judges, to your point, like our judges don't represent the quality and the kind of people we are here in Idaho. Just like the doctors that are coming out of med school, same thing's happening. And so I'm thankful for the Hell Institute and things that are going on and other things, but we got to start training our judges.
We got education problems in every direction.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just medical schools, but law schools.
And so I imagine this judge, he sounds like some sort of liberal leaning judge to me already in how he's handling your case. The second thing is, organizations like Reclaim Idaho, we just talked about, getting hundreds of millions from out of state. Well, Prop 1's a good example here. Prop 1 in Idaho is the
was.
I'm so thankful, man. What a mess.
Attempt to change our primaries.
Yeah, change our primaries to open primaries,
quote unquote open.
So you could just be, a Democrat who can vote Republican. You don't got to register for Republican or anything at all.
I just assumed it was open, like Maricopa County's open.
Yeah,
like whatever.
So, and then ranked choice voting was part of that.
Right.
Ranked choice voting is a screwy system for voting. All the conservative states, all the states that have ranked choice voting or has some sort of initiative for ranked choice voting were conservative states.
And now they're liberal.
Not one liberal. No, not one liberal state.
Oh, no. But the ones that have already passed it have gone liberal.
That's correct.
Like,
or got blue. Like
Alaska, right?
I was going to think Alaska was
Alaska's undoing it, I think. I think they're in the process of undoing it.
Okay.
But the point is that liberals are pushing things like this.
They're
ranked
only
choice voting
running this
in conservative states.
In red states.
Yeah.
Like, that's not suspicious.
And so, but Christians need to create organizations like this and not only help kind of fix Idaho and stuff, but start running subversive measures in California,
right?
That the people will vote for.
Well, and
change things.
I think too, we've won, and after Roe v. Wade, it's like, okay, we've won this victory, but then we still have a problem in the hearts and minds of people. Yeah. And so now what they're doing is they're coming in subversively through a law, through a civil court to try and win hearts and minds. We might not be able to change the law.
Right.
But if we can change hearts and minds, we know we're going to get to the law. Yeah. And I don't think that we should be resting at all in the fact that we have a victory through Roe v. Wade or that we have trigger laws that went into place. We have to actually double down on winning people's hearts and minds, which is one of the reasons I was asking you, how do you talk with women who are in this place where they're like, I'm not going to be able to handle my baby. Like,
it's too much stress.
It's too much stress.
The joy of, we have great medical information showing, that you will only make it worse through abortion. There's no benefit to that. You will carry that regret.
Same thing for the trans surgeries. But
if you think about mental health,
you will arrive at the end of that process and you will still not be happy with who you are.
Right.
Yeah.
And we got, you don't have to, that medical information is easily found and is out there, although maybe a little harder to find on Google since they bury that stuff.
Right. And also the inverse is often the case too, though. I mean, isn't it also true that, children are not an automatic blessing, but children really are a gift. Mm-hmm. And so maybe even in those really difficult situations, I've talked to single moms before who've told me like, my kid is like giving me so much purpose, so much meaning.
And I shared my own story a couple of years ago where my wife and I were not married when our first baby came along.
Yeah.
And, I had a lot of manning up to do. Having a baby made us honest. It was crazy hard. I left school and worked as a janitor for a couple of years and the Lord gave some opportunity to go back to school after that.
Right.
Man, we could have got so close. And yet that joy of being able to make things right and the gift of new life, that is a good God who gives grace and gifts even when we don't deserve it.
What do you mean so close? Something
we thought about having an abortion. Yeah. And I actually did your podcast on that, because I want people to know that even a good Christian kid can get really close in a dire moment, believing lies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yet we also had a doctor, a believer who my wife turned to, who's my girlfriend at the time. And, he said, you're going to have a beautiful baby.
Yeah.
And we're going to walk this road with you. Yeah. And that changed everything.
Yeah.
It was a baby.
That's a good doctor.
It was a future, and it was a direction that he called us to.
Yeah. It's a huge, it's a game changer. I really do think, to be going in the direction that God created the world. and welcoming children, even for unbelievers. It's like, again, not an automatic blessing, and sometimes it can go terribly wrong. But the more you cut with the grain of the way God made the world, it really is better for you. It really,
it's really hard to see that in the midst of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you need. This is our opportunity, gentlemen, to come along as the church, to come along beside these women and say, you're going to have a beautiful baby, and we're going to walk this road with you. I now have a 28-year-old daughter who's expecting her fifth, and whose name is Madeline Grace.
Yeah.
For that very reason.
Right.
So Doc, what's next for you? What is it that you want?
Yeah, I've been asked to write an op-ed, and I'd asked that you guys would pray that I would have wisdom and succinctness and thoughtfulness. I am finding a lot of people reaching out and say, "What can I do? How can I get involved?" And I'm still trying to figure that out. I think we have some groups in Idaho that are starting to wake up to the reality that we need to fight for our laws and for our way of life. But I'm hopeful.
What's your website?
It's really through I have a YouTube channel through Story Family Medicine that I regularly post videos about things that I think are important for Christians to understand about the practice of medicine and some of the real problems that are out there, some of the ways that we should be different. It's also through www.storyfamilymed.com, which is my clinic website. We love caring for families in a really unique way called direct primary care, which is a membership model growing around the United States. And we really think it's a great way for communities and churches to grow with a physician and allow them to serve each other.
Direct what?
Primary care.
Direct primary care. If people Google that, will things come up for them?
There will. It still is a nascent movement,
kind
and
of
a lot of doctors
West.
that are like saying, "I got to get out of medicine. What can I do?" And they're really small and very local. And it all depends on the doctor that you find as to whether they're a faithful person or whether they have other ideas.
Yeah.
But we sure are appreciating how we are, without the need to involve the government in healthcare, that we can deal honestly and faithfully, that we can be very straightforward and transparent in our pricing. We're creating a whole separate economy in our locally and seeing others come alongside us, like Veritas Surgery Center. It's a marvelous thing to be out of the rat race and away from the crazy medical, legal, industrial, whatever you want to put it.
Yeah.
I knew you would come up with the word complex.
Industrial complex. Oh, man.
Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Squirrely Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. All their coffee is hand-selected, every single bean. Hand selected, roasted, fresh every day
They're true bean counters
by a family of fellow believers. Try them out and you will savor exceptional coffee while knowing that your investment supports a company committed to following God's teaching and upholding truth and righteousness, ensuring your hard-earned money contributes to the growth of God's kingdom and not the post-war consensus.
I was waiting for that.
Stop giving your hard-earned dollars to pagans who support evil. We have a fantastic offer for our listeners and readers. Your first bag of Squirrely Joe's coffee is free. Well, how about that? It's free. So all you have to do is cover the shipping. So head over to squirrelyjoes.com/crosspolitic, squirrelyjoes.com/crosspolitic to claim your free bag of coffee today.
Dr. Story, thank you so much.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for the time.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Come on,
Giving.
If you're single, get married.
White sauce on that turkey.
No, don't do that. If you're married, have some kids. If you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.